Hey everybody, Brian here, yet another video on my Logic Drums to Anything plugin, and this time I really want to clear up some confusion about Get Good Drums. Some people have contacted me about having some issues, and the more I look at Get Good Drums libraries, the more I realize that there really are a ton of inconsistencies across them. So I can understand that it can be maddening using the script, things aren't going as you expect them, and that's because Get Good Drums behind the scenes might not be set up right. So to help you from going insane with all that kind of madness, I'm going to go over all those kit-to-kit differences so you'll be up and running just fine. So I've tested 7 different libraries for Get Good Drums. Here they are, and each one has certain little nuances. So I'm just going to go step by step through these 7, and if you have one that isn't listed here, then hopefully this video will still be helpful and you'll figure out the kind of things you need to do in your Get Good Drums library. So here's the first one, Invasion. Now one thing to note is across all the libraries, they tend to use different HHCC numbers. That's for controlling hi-hat open close using CC control. It's pretty weird that for each one they're using something different. And also they use different velocity breakpoints for switching between a snare rim shot and a snare regular hit. And there are some other individual nuances from library to library. So with Invasion, all we have to do is just set the HHCC num to 4. So let's go over to Invasion. And when you open it up the first time, you should see something like this. You'll probably see the full kit at first, so click on Settings. And you should see Invasion shown here as a loaded preset by default. All notes are set. And under here, hat CC number, by default that's 40. Just slide that over to 4. Make sure you really did choose 4. And that's it. Now you might think you could just save that map, export it, and then the next time you open it, it's going to be set that way. But actually not. Get Good Drums is so stubborn that no matter what you do with these kind of settings here, it's always going to revert back to hat CC number 40. So what I do is I just go to File, Save As, and just save as a different version of that instrument. So I saved it adding this text My Edit. So I'm going to close out of here. And now if I go to File, Load, I see that edited version. You could also click that in your library browser and Contact. And now notice we have this hat CC number set the way we need it. Next up to bat is Architects. In this case we have the HHCC num by default 66, so we're going to change that to 4. And the ride choke note you might notice is not set, so we're going to set that to E3 and also make sure the snare hit is D0. So here we are in Architects. Under the Settings tab, so here's that hat CC number, we're going to change that to 4. The choke set to E3 if it's not already, and the snare hit, make sure that's D0. And I'm going to File, Save As, and I've already saved it, so I saved it as just a version of that instrument, but adding my edit so I know that this is a different version. That way if I open that up, you can also open that up in the browser in Contact. Everything's already set as needed. And now Modern Fusion's the next one. This one gets kind of tricky, surprisingly tricky actually. At least in my setup, I don't even see what the CC number is. It looks like it's around 28 or so. And setting that to 4 requires a little bit of black magic. That took me about an hour to figure out. No idea why they make it so difficult. But anyway, here I am in Modern Fusion. And notice if I try setting this hi-hat CC number, it's not giving me any visual output. I have no idea what I've changed it to. In my experimenting, even if I change it to say 1 or 0 or 127, if I send CC data along those CC numbers, nothing is happening in Get Good Drums, Modern Fusion. So the way I figured out to change that, this is going to look really strange, is all I did was create a region in Logic, and I added an entry for the foot control, where it's sending the value of 4. That's going to sound really strange, because we're already on foot control of 4. Why do I have to actually set the value to 4? That doesn't make any sense. But it seems to work, so now I'm going to go back into Contact. I'm going to right click on this hi-hat CC number and hit Learn MIDI. Same thing with the hi-hat CC position. Learn MIDI. And I'm going to hit play. And now I'm going to go back to this hi-hat CC number, right click again. This time remove it. I'm not going to do that for the hi-hat CC position. And by the way, I noticed that if I just had one value here, if I just had a flat line of 4, it wasn't having that effect here. That's why I've added these additional values of 4. It's just 4 all the way through. Anyway, like I said, it seems kind of like black magic. I think Get Good Drums is specifically weird with their library-to-library differences because they want to sell you their MIDI mapper, which then probably fixes all those annoyances. But anyway, I'm showing you how to do it without that. And I'm going to File, Save As, just like we did with the previous libraries, and just save it as a different version of that same instrument just so you know which version is the original, which ones are edited. I've saved it as this Modern Fusion, my edit. So now if I open that version, things are already set with this hi-hat CC number, and even though I can't slide this and see that it's 4, I know that it is actually set to 4, exactly as we need. Next up, aggressive rock. All we need to do here is set the CC number to 4 like we did with the others. This time you might notice you have to hit shift click even to set it to 4. So once again, some weirdness with GGD, specifically making go through all sorts of hoops just to make these kind of basic setups. So here's aggressive rock. If I try to set this to 4, notice what happens. I see 5, I see 3. No matter what I do, if I slide this, I can't set it to 4. But luckily, if you hit shift on your keyboard, then you get finer control. And there, now I've set it to 4. And then save this one, just like with the previous libraries. That way when you load it, the hi-hat CC number is already set as needed. And then with Modern and Massive, you can set the HHCC number as well as setting the HHCC note. So in Modern and Massive, under settings, mappings, the hat CC is not set. So I set that to G2, which is unused. It makes sense here in the sequence of things since we have F#2 as the hat open 1. So just set this one to G2 and then set this hat CC number from 18, its default. Just change that to 4. And you know the drill by now, file, save as, and just save an instrument that has this setting already made. So that way you load it and things are already set. Now to Halpern 4. With that one, we have to set the HHCC number, as well as assign a note to the HH pedal ching. So in Halpern P IV in contact, here we look at the HH ching. I set that to C#2, which is an unused note. And set the hat CC number to 4. And save the instrument. And lastly, Halpern P V. This one we just have to set the hat CC number to 4, and this might involve the same trick that we used earlier when we were dealing with aggressive rock. So here I am in P5, under settings, articulations, everything there is already good to go by default, so you just go to velocity curve. That's where they've decided to bury the hi-hat CC data, the hi-hat CC settings. So here we have the hat CC number, and if you slide that to the left, I see 3, I see 5, can't set that to 4, but if I hit shift, and now move the slider, I can set that to 4, and then save it. With those changes in place for any of these scripts, they're going to work now, so you just go to Scripter. If you haven't already loaded that, just make sure you have it there under the MIDI plugin Scripter, and then load the given script. So I have the GGD Invasion, and I have a drummer part here in Logic, where I've just set some variation in the hi-hat patterns, change the intensity, complexity, so we can hear some variation. It's always good to play back and then just take a look at what's going on here. You should see the hat CC position changing. You see that changing here. And you can tell just by listening that the hi-hats are opening and closing. And likewise, you could do that for any of the other libraries. So that was an overview of what you need to do with various GGD libraries to make sure that the various scripts work, do their thing correctly. And now remember, some libraries have various notes that are not in Logic, and also the script supports some additional functionality like generating snare rolls and ruffs and stuff like that if the library doesn't have it. So you can start out with a drummer part. Remember, you can convert those parts to MIDI. So that's what I've done here. I just have some Logic drummer part, and here I've converted it to MIDI. For instance, with GGD Invasion, it has an additional snare wires off hit, it has China and splash, it has some bells hit, and so you can just mark up the MIDI to take advantage of some of that additional functionality. So in GGD Invasion, if I go to Scripter, Show Advanced Stuff, this is where I can see the unused Logic notes. So user snare notes, user cymbal notes. And also the script uses snare side stick to perform articulation switching. If you want to use the snare wires off, you just set the Logic AID to 3. and that would have this Logic side stick sample played back the snare wires off. I just chose some samples so that I can do that articulation switching. So in any case, to see what's going on, I've just muted the Logic drummer note and then added the C#1 note here and here. If I go to the list editor, I've set articulation 3 to those notes, and I've also added these bell hits. And the script uses this Cymbal other 4 and other 5 to play those, which are these notes B-2 and C-1, and then also added a China crash and a splash crash, an E-2 and F#-2, as well as a snare roll. I've muted these notes that Logic created and just drew out a snare roll here with this note D-2, which here we see is D-2. And now we can play back and see some of this variety that we added. I could do likewise with Architects, take advantage of some of its unique features. So with Architects, for instance, it has a ride choke note, there's X cross hats, it too has a China and splash hit, and it doesn't have a snare ruff, but we can use the script's ability to generate those kind of sounds. So here we're adding a snare ruff user-defined note in Logic. Here I've added some ride hits along with a ride choke, and again splash, and a crash, a splash and a China hit, a snare roll, and I've added those X hats as well. And again, if I hit show advanced stuff, I can see what these notes are, what these user-defined notes are. So the snare ruff is the C#-2, that's this one. And then the user-defined note for a ride choke is this one here, D#-2. And then the X cross hats is G#-2. That's this generic Cymbal other 1 crash. And then again the snare roll, D-2. Now we can play this one back with those changes. And then a similar idea for any kit, and by the way, the same idea applies not just to Get Good Drums, but any library that has additional articulations that Logic doesn't have. The script provides you a way to use those articulations in your overall drum production. So you start out with some Logic part, convert it to MIDI, and then you start applying this kind of additional editing. So that's it. Hopefully you found this useful. I know Get Good Drums is crazily annoying when it comes to all these differences, but now hopefully you'll see what you need to do to get consistency so that when you open up those kits in Kontakt, they're always going to be exactly as needed. So you can quickly go from one library to another. The scripts will all work, do their thing, no trouble. And if you do have problems, then just get in touch and we'll work you through it. All right, thanks. Till next time.